In the heart of Philadelphia, a city rich with American history, stands a building that witnessed one of the most pivotal moments in American history: Independence Hall. And within these hallowed walls, a group of visionary leaders gathered to draft a document that would change the course of history. This is the story of the Declaration of Independence, a remarkable testament to human courage and Enlightenment ideals, a document that declared the birth of a new nation founded on principles that continue to shape the world today. As the 18th century progressed, the American colonies became hubs of trade and growth. But beneath this prosperity lay simmering tensions. The British Crown, seeking to finance its overseas empire, imposed a series of taxes without consent from the colonies who held no positions in Parliament, giving rise to the infamous phrase, "No taxation without representation." From the Stamp Act to the Townshend Acts, the colonists felt the increasing weight of British economic control. The Sugar Act, which taxed molasses, a vital component in colonial industry, was particularly contentious. Yet, it was the Tea Act, giving the East India Company a monopoly, that would ignite the infamous Boston Tea Party, a political protest by the Sons of Liberty in Boston, Massachusetts, on December 16, 1773. In defiance of the Tea Act and to protest British taxation without representation, colonists, some disguised as Mohawk Indians, boarded British ships and dumped 342 chests of British tea into the Boston harbor. This defiant act was a clear message. The seeds of revolution were sown. Recognizing the need for a unified response, leaders from 12 of the 13 colonies convened the First Continental Congress in 1774 in Philadelphia. Prominent figures such as John Adams, a fierce advocate for independence, George Washington, the stoic Virginian with unmatched leadership, and Patrick Henry, remembered for his rallying cry, "Give me liberty or give me death," emerged as leading figures. Meanwhile, the situation escalated. Clashes like those at Lexington and Concord in 1775 signaled the onset of the Revolutionary War. There was only one man possessing the requisite qualifications and esteemed leadership to command this ragtag army, and that man was none other than General George Washington. The war was now in full swing, and by the time the Second Continental Congress convened in 1775, debates over independence were intensifying. Many delegates believed reconciliation with Britain was still possible, while others felt that declaring independence was the only path forward. Amid the backdrop of war and political uncertainty, a committee led by the eloquent Thomas Jefferson, the diplomatic Benjamin Franklin, and the passionate John Adams was tasked with drafting a declaration that would articulate the colony's desire to be free. Young Thomas Jefferson, a Virginian lawyer and philosopher, was chosen to draft the declaration. Secluded in his Philadelphia apartment for days on end, he immersed himself in the assignment, crafting each phrase, each sentiment, directly from his brilliant mind. Upon completion of the draft, Jefferson presented the document to Adams and Franklin, who were met with a wave of astonishment. The eloquent Jefferson had delivered a beautiful declaration encompassing the fundamental human rights, a comprehensive list of grievances against King George III, and an allusion to a new form of government in which the government derives their powers from the consent of the governed. For days, the Congress debated, edited, and refined the draft. Every line, every word, bore the weight of the future.
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
These words, a profound statement of equality and human rights, would resonate through the ages, influencing future generations and other revolutions. By July 4, 1776, The Declaration was adopted, and 13 colonies became united in their quest for independence. Each signature was not just an endorsement of the document, but a commitment to the ideals of a new republic, and a potential death warrant if the revolution failed. The Declaration of Independence was more than just a statement of separation from Britain. It was a bold proclamation of freedom, equality, and the inalienable rights of man. A nation was born, its spirit captured in ink, its future yet to be written. Beyond its lofty ideals and poetic language, the Declaration of Independence contained a specific list of grievances against King George III, a catalogue of the colonists' frustrations and reasons for seeking independence. Among these grievances were the king's refusal to assent to beneficial and necessary laws, the imposition of taxes without colonial consent, the dissolution of colonial legislatures, and the quartering of large bodies of armed troops among the colonists. Across the Atlantic, when word of the Declaration reached King George III, his reaction was one of surprise and outrage. Feeling the challenge to his authority, King George saw the Declaration as a rebellious act, one that needed to be obliterated. The stakes had been raised. No longer was this just a colonial rebellion. It was a formal declaration of war against the Crown. And the British Empire, one of the most powerful forces of its time, was not going to let the challenge go unanswered. The die had been cast. As the sun set on the American colonies, a new chapter in their fight for freedom was about to begin. The ink on the Declaration of Independence had barely dried, but the American colonies were already deep in the throes of conflict. The Revolutionary War, ignited by tensions and skirmishes, now raged in full force. These were not just battles. They were the physical manifestations of American resilience, determination, and hunger for liberty. As the war raged on, the colonies sought allies. Diplomats, like Benjamin Franklin, worked tirelessly in Europe. Their efforts bore fruit as France, seeing an opportunity to challenge the British, extended crucial support in terms of troops and naval power. The tides began to turn. With French assistance, the Americans laid siege to Yorktown in 1781. The British, trapped and unable to escape by sea due to the French naval blockade, were finally forced into a dire situation. British General Cornwallis was forced surrender to General Washington. Although the war would continue sporadically for 2 more years, this was the decisive battle of the Revolution. The war had been long and costly, but the dream that started with a bold declaration had finally come to fruition. The United States of America had earned its place on the world stage, not just through the might of its arms, but through the unyielding spirit of its people. The ripples of July 4, 1776, extend far beyond the heated battles of the American Revolution. They can be felt even today. Year after year, millions flock to the National Archives, where the worn parchment with its fading ink captures the imagination of all who gaze upon it. The principles of the Declaration are taught to young minds, serving as a cornerstone of American education and values. Through the ages, activists, leaders, and everyday citizens have called back to the Declaration's proclamation that all men are created equal, challenging the nation to live up to its promise. Every year, on the 4th of July, America doesn't just celebrate its birth. It celebrates the ideals of liberty, equality, and democracy articulated in its foundational text. For politicians, activists, and leaders, the Declaration remains a touchstone, a guiding document that serves as a beacon for policy and change. For many, it's deeply personal. The ideals enshrined in that historic document represent sacrifices made, battles fought, and the continuous evolution of a nation striving for a more perfect union. The Declaration of Independence was not just the birth certificate of a nation, but a promise. A promise that, while not always perfectly realized, remains the heart and soul of the American experiment. Over the years, America has faced trials and tribulations, but the core principles from the Declaration have always guided its path. They've been a beacon during times of darkness, a rallying cry for justice, and a reminder of what the nation aspires to be. The ink has faded, the parchment has aged, but the words remain timeless, inspiring fresh interpretations and driving new chapters in the American story. From that hot summer day in 1776 to the present, the spirit of the Declaration of Independence continues to illuminate the American journey, reminding us all of a simple truth: that we are a nation born from a bold idea, and it's an idea that will forever remain the spirit of the United States of America.